record on this computer. All right, we're recording. So back to it. Like I said, did that like 3 out of 5 times so far. So thank you, everybody. Obviously, it's been an interesting couple of months. This is not the way that we normally operate a program, right? This is not what we set out to do. It's you know, we're proud of the job we've been doing, but at best, it's been a fly by the seat of your pants sort of situation, like a couple weeks at a time for going on 10 months now. And that's a stressful thing for us. It's a stressful thing for your swimmers. It's a stressful thing for all of you. So we haven't been able to put out I hate these terms, but like the product, right, that we normally like to. The experience, I guess, is a better one that we normally would for your swimmers. But we're doing the best we can. We appreciate overwhelmingly. There's been so much support, and even when people do have issues or concerns or complaints, which is great, keep them coming. That we've also had it in the context of, I'm frustrated you guys are doing well, but I'm frustrated by this, that, or the other thing. Collections of the last several months, I guess it's going on 10 months now, like I said. One of the things when Drew and I were planning out these meetings, I was like, we should start with like a sorry, not sorry, which is, maybe not the ideal way to apologize, but you'll understand. I feel like the best term to describe both Drew and I personally the last 10 months or so, but also kind of the organization back in general, has been pessimistic optimists, right? Pessimistic about some of the short-term stuff, but optimistic about some of the long-term stuff. I feel like, months ago, there were lots of people that were trying to tell you what you wanted to hear about how long this would last or the impact it would have or how quickly you go back to normal. And that just hasn't been, that isn't Drew's personality. Certainly it isn't my personality either. Drew had a great example. Drew, you want to lay on your idioms?
Yeah, I basically told Jake that no fortune teller has ever gone broke by just telling people what they want to hear. And no politician doesn't get reelected by just telling people what they want to hear. And unfortunately, the people that tell people stuff that they don't want to hear sometimes kill the messenger. So that was a lot of metaphors or analogies or whatever. But basically, like Jake was saying, is that we have tried to take the information that we have and to the best of our knowledge and ability, pass that on to the club and the kids.
Sorry that we haven't always been the cheeriest of messengers, and sorry we've been the harbingers of doom in some sense, but also not sorry because we're just doing the best we can, just trying to be honest, and by and large we've been right. One of the examples I gave was a kid that now is a freshman in high school and was talking this summer. Obviously, I coached him in 7th and 8th grade, and they were saying, "What do you think? Do you think we'll have high school meets, like normal high school meets?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know that you're going to have a season." And the look she gave me was like, "You're an idiot, and also you're a jerk, equal parts, right? Like, oh, you're so wrong. You don't know what you're talking about." And it's, here we are. So we haven't liked that that's the case, but it is what it is. So we have been pessimistic about some of the short-term stuff. We are very optimistic about, what this means for, long-term stuff for our swimmers. This is not going to ruin the sport of swimming. This is not going to ruin you personally as a swimmer, or certainly not as a person. It sucks. It's not fun, but we're all going to get through it, and we're going to be all right on the other side. The latest Public Health Madison-Dane County, there's obviously a lot of organizations that have rules and guidelines that impact kind of what we do and how we can do it. But by far the overarching one is Public Health Madison-Dane County. Their 6-foot rule is what's kind of driven our super lane usage. When they, in mid-November, in anticipation of Thanksgiving, kind of went to not essentially a lockdown really, but when they changed some of the rules, that's what caused us to kind of go to a shutdown and virtual only dry land mode for a couple of weeks. Right now we're back to essentially the same set of rules we had even before October, but operating indoors in October and November, with the biggest one of those being that 6 foot of distance. And we'll talk about that more when we get to a section about how to operate. Let's see here. Next slide. So this is Drew's part, but just sort of we had little message tailored kind of specifically to each group. So Drew, you can go ahead with that.
Well, one of the things that actually I've always promoted as I've coached is, just control what you can control. And I know it's hard to not see things that are happening other places and freak out about it. But this is a skill that's really important if you can figure out a way of just focusing on what you can do and to get better. So right now we're really limited in the length of practice. We're looking at an hour practice, and what needs to be done there is doing the swimming the best you can, the most efficiently you can in the time that we have. And
This is stupid.
those of you that are interested in swimming in college, one of the huge things that is very important is underwater kicking. There's, events and swimmers that spend, 60, 70% of the time underwater. So these are things that you can work on. When we have a 2-hour practice and, we're at Shorewood or whatever, a lot of people are just working on trying to survive. Now it's about working on your speed to swim efficiently and get better while we're doing it. The practice that I was at last night, nice job in harping on the concept of doing stuff right, but you can still see some of the old habits just, filtering in, that I'm just going to swim the way I've always swam. And that's hard to change those habits and behaviors. So this is what needs to be done in these, next few weeks, because what we're looking at now is that this is the beginning of our long course season. And we'll talk a little bit about why, long course meters is in quotation marks, but we're looking at finding a way of progressing as a team as we go. I've talked to a lot of coaches through the country, and one of the things I think has been interesting is COVID has really changed people's thinking of the paradigm of how they should run practices. So when I was growing up and swimming with Jack, the idea was to swim 20,000 meters and just never kick and just get beat to death. You're lucky, those days are gone. And so we've progressed to then, ultra race-based training. And of course, the old guys all hated that, but we're looking at that's being more of a model for everyone. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But the other thing I wanted to talk about before we go on to the next thing is when this first started, and universities and colleges really took an opportunity to cut swim programs. In Ohio, almost all the Ys in Ohio kicked out their swim teams, and because, for reasons, and they're not back. What's happened is, I think it's been shown that, like the University of Iowa, they're going to be $68 million in the hole. So we're going to get rid of men's and women's swimming, which will save us $1.7 million. And so that was shown to be obviously just, a misstep. And what we're seeing is, especially because of Title IX, women's programs coming back. The University of Iowa, I think, Eastern Carolina bringing their programs back. So I think what we're seeing is that stabilizing and not nearly as scary as it was 10 months ago for losing programs. And so as everybody tries to get through this, and once again, with the NCAA, it's about the football money coming in and the basketball money coming in. They're still trying to get that done. So hopefully we will ride through this, and I don't think it will have many programs being dropped as we go forward in the next few months.
Excellent. Yeah. So just more part of that optimistic long-term outlook. MAP guidelines. We've talked through MAP quite a bit. The reason I left this on here is a lot of you guys, a lot of parents that are listening have been, I think, wonderfully handing off some of the responsibilities of scheduling practices and stuff and coordinating stuff to your swimmers, which is fantastic. I think it's one of, it's hard to identify a lot of silver linings with COVID and the way things are operating, but that's one of them. But one of the reminders is that anytime your swimmer or swimmers that are listening, anytime that a swimmer is texting or any communication with a coach, text, email, whatever, please include the parent. Coaches can't be sending anything directly to just a swimmer. So I get a lot of emails like, hey, can you take me out of Tuesday and put me into Wednesday? And if it's just from the kid, sometimes I just reply back and say, yeah, but realistically, I shouldn't be replying at all. It's just so much easier if you can include a parent, then we can just click reply all instead of hunting down an email address. So remember that. Group specific details, we kind of covered a lot of the stuff in the message to the swimmers, but one thing we're working on, and I totally didn't take a chance to look at this thing, but this is going to start next week. Some of the days, not all of the days that you guys are at SAUC, we've gotten some space to do dry land before or after. Before if you're in obviously the 8 o'clock practice, and after if you're in the 7 o'clock practice. It'll be 30 to 45 minutes. If you absolutely can or don't want to, if mom or dad drives you and they're sitting in the parking lot and they don't want to wait for a dry land part, whatever. We're just trying to make it, especially those of you that drive yourselves that distance, we just want to make it as quote unquote worth it as possible to go that little bit extra mile. Re-emphasis on the COVID rules. By and large, our team we're going to talk about our frustrations with some of the COVID rules and experience later. By and large, our team has been phenomenal, right? But there are some times where, especially the high school groups, I think a lot of you are maybe, you have a couple friends that are within your current bubble right now. So you're not used to being as distant from them as you might be from everybody else. And so just a reminder that when we're at practice, it doesn't matter, that Susie came over to your house for a couple hours the other day to do homework together. You got to keep your distance at our practices. So just a reminder on that. January session information. Obviously, some of this is review. It's a 5-week session, runs now through February 7th. The reason February 7th is that's when we're going to have a change in our pool time at Edgewood, at least, with the presumed start of their high school girls season. I don't think it's been 100% confirmed, but pretty sure it's going to happen. Sounds like some of you that are not Edgewood people might have some season start, something like, I think the Middleton boys are practicing right now. The Verona boys are practicing. So I don't know if the girls have that confirmed yet either, but it sounds like there's a possibility for that. Your sign-up genius stuff should be settled, other than we're going to be eliminating some of the dry lands, not this week, but we're going to be eliminating, condensing, rescheduling some dry lands going forward. The Royal, and I remember I just looked at the Royal Navy ones, and they're for the most part full. There's a couple here and there that they're going to get axed. I haven't looked at Ultra in a little bit, so I don't recall, but you'll get notified if it affects you. How we're thinking running about practice. We did have a coach meeting last Sunday before this session started to kind of reiterate everything Drew talked about, right? Being, having only an hour, or some of the groups are 45 minutes, making use of that time, what kinds of things we want to see in practice, how we want practices run. So our coaches, we're trying to hold ourselves to that standard of making the most out of every minute possible. But especially kids your age, a lot of that comes down to you as well. And that includes, if warm-up is 650s of freestyle, that you're dialed in and thinking about what, Drew told you about your flip turn last week, or what somebody else, Claire, told you about your elbow, whatever it is, that you're thinking about it, not just being mindless. But it also means that when we're explaining stuff, that you guys are dialed in and listening, right? One of the examples we said is, if you have a great set, this is to the coaches, if you have a great set that's going to take you 5 minutes to explain, you don't have a great set. Not now anyway, right? Like if we have an hour-long practice, you can't waste 5 minutes explaining something. So we're going to try to keep things a little simpler, but that also means that when it's explanation time, that you guys are dialed in, so we don't have to do it 2 or 3 times or start things over. The flex pool practices. So getting back to Public Health Madison-Dane County, the biggest guideline that we're operating under is that 6 feet of distancing at all times, right? I'm going to stop the share just a second here, because I feel it's helpful to sort of stuff. So obviously when we're resting between distances, we're at least 6 feet spaced. But the way the rules are written is also we can't pass within 6 feet of each other, right? So that's obviously why we've been operating with the double wide super lanes instead of the normal single lanes, so that we're swimming further apart from each other and we're 6 feet even when we're passing. There's nothing in Public Health Madison-Dane County that says anything about 4 to a super lane or 3 or 6 or anything like that. We started with 4 because it was something we felt comfortable with. And as our swimmers and coaches have gotten more used to it, we started to flex in every once in a while when somebody needs another schedule or another practice to fit their schedule. We've been adding a 13th or a 14th swimmer so that sometimes we have 5 per super lane. We're going to look at that and really, really feel that out this session as a possible way to sort of combat the loss of pool time we anticipate in February. That if we can go from sort of a baseline of 12 swimmers per practice to 15, that's going to be a big difference for us in terms of the amount of practice we can get each individual swimmer. With that, obviously, the longer distances are hard, but right now when we're doing short practices, we should be doing longer distances anyway. Miscellaneous stuff. Try not to arrive more than 5 minutes before the start of practice. At most of our facilities, that's a COVID concern, right? We don't want a huge overlap of one group in there a long time with another. But at Edgewood, it's also a door concern, right? They're very strict on us not opening that door, us on not unlocking that door. So most of the time, although it seems like they have some groups in there that have been unlocking it themselves, some Edgewood affiliated groups. So it might be open if you come down earlier than that, but generally speaking, wait till 5 minutes before. That's when a coach will come out from the pool deck and let you know. I have my phone number in here. If you're locked out of Edgewood and you're coming late, honestly, kids your age, you guys probably have a better chance of knowing, somebody else that's at practice and texting them that you're going to be late so they can let a coach know, or texting a coach. But there's my number in case you need it. Hello, girls. Winter clothing. Girls, it's winter time. I had to do 2 of these yesterday. My internet was down, so we did 2 of these yesterday. And I do them from EJ's garage because my internet wasn't working. And I can tell you, it's cold. So girls, stop leaving practice. Sunday, I coached a girl, high school age practice, and all the girls left in wet towels, coats, and like Crocs with no socks. It was ridiculous. It's wintertime. Meets. Obviously, we have a meet upcoming this next weekend, 10 days, 8 days from now, whatever it is. But then we have a couple other meets on the schedule, Rocket Aquatics for the younger kids, and then A+. Those are all currently closed. You should be getting information on those as they get closer. We do have an inter-squad meet planned for Sunday the 24th, Drew. Is that right? In Waukesha. That might be aimed more at, like, those of you that are doing A+, that's not as necessary a meet, and we might let other kids in because they're, a lot of our senior kids, you have cuts, you've had cuts for years for some of these meets. A lot of our junior and senior kids, some of you haven't, but we want to make sure, there's a lot of populations that A+ doesn't fit, or this Waukesha meet doesn't fit for different reasons. Should back up and say, if you guys are interested in doing meets currently as part of this session, great. If you're not, that's fine too, right? Just because we're offering these meets doesn't mean that they're required. If somebody says, hey, we're comfortable with practice, but we're just not comfortable with the COVID exposure that might come from travel or a meet or whatever, great, that's fine. It's for every individual family to choose, right? LSC meet should be determined the next couple of weeks. We have sort of a pre-meeting on the 12th. We have a real meeting on the 19th, and then things have to be voted on by the board by at least the 26th, is sort of the last date for them. So in terms of regional, state, stuff like that, I think it's obvious that the normal way we do those meets,
I spent my bag.
I think the normal way we do those meets isn't going to happen. But we're not quite sure what the plan is for how they are going to be run. My guess is regional weekend will be sort of a free-for-all, do whatever you can for your club, and that the other meets, like a 13 and over state meet, is probably going to be run with probably similar standards, but timed final and different age groups at different times. 15, 16s in their own session, clear the pool, 17, 18s in their own session, but we'll see. Is there really nothing else? That was a quote from a parent, and this is not a criticism of that parent in any way. Quote from an email, a parent expressing their frustrations about, the lack of meet opportunities. Is there really nothing else? And the answer was, no, there isn't. Here's a partial list of meets that got canceled this fall. Here is a partial list of meets that have happened. Notice, inter-squad, dual, inter-squad, dual, dual. That's the sort of meets that are happening right now. Here is the meet schedule that gets published before every season. Gray with this little box means it's canceled. Canceled. That entire page, canceled, 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 canceled. And some of these that aren't canceled, aren't listed as canceled, I should say, were. This is our meet. We didn't have this. This is a Sun Prairie meet we typically have gone to. They didn't have this, right? Most of the meet opportunities that are available in a particular season just aren't available right now, and I think the reasons for that are obvious. So when you're, frustrated, we understand. We share your frustrations, but if you're asking the rhetorical question, are there no other meet opportunities out there? The answer is no, there really aren't. Meets this spring and summer, hopefully that's going to look a little bit different. There's obviously a lot that's still to be determined about that. I have no idea when we're going to be able to do anything like a local meet, other than some of the different format inter squad options we did outside this summer and fall. But there'll definitely be some more meet options going forward. Drew, do you want to talk about the short course yard, the thinking there?
Yeah, I'm on, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Because the short course times are kind of really important to both the most kids, but especially the junior seniors that are looking for times for college programming. And it's going to be very difficult for us to have something, like Jake was saying, we'll probably have a state meet, but how ready can we be type of situation. So our goal is that, as our pool time opens up and, maybe COVID rules loosen up, we'll start to train more and more. We're looking at and working towards having, a pretty high, high caliber short course meet for you to swim. And that not necessarily means time standards, just that, we're looking at, not necessarily just doing it at Hawks Landing type of thing, but I've been in talk with the UW trying to get something at the Nick, but those have been pretty slow. But we're looking at doing that, and that would hopefully be sometime it'll probably be early summer. And so that's kind of one of our long-term goals.
So instead of maybe like doing a couple day rest like we would in normal summer for like a glow, it might be that meet, and then we'll just train on for long course tape or whatever happens. All right, on to the next one. Here we go. February session and beyond. So like we mentioned, as of now, we're looking at a reduction in our pool time at Edgewood for February. As I'm sure a lot of the kids at least are aware, right now the Edgewood boys are practicing and have been practicing. They're a small enough team so they have that normal kind of after school 4 to 6 kind of time slot. They're small enough they can do it in one shift. Right now it's looking like the girls team is going to be large enough that it's going to necessitate 2 practices to split groups, something like that. Schwalbe doesn't have her plans 100% yet set, but that's what it's looking like. So we anticipate a little bit of a reduction in our pool time there. We are looking for additional pool options. We got a couple places we're reaching out to and are in contact with. Not sure what, if anything, will work out there. We'll talk about kind of the pools we've normally used a little bit later. And obviously there's some different possibilities for pool usage. We already talked about pools in Dane County. Is 12 the right number for 4 per super lane, or are we more comfortable going with 5? What's our practice structure going to be at Sauk? Sauk is technically not in Dane County, so we could operate a different way there. And so at this point, it's appropriate to kind of pause the slide and talk about that, because obviously, I think I would hope and imagine it goes without saying, given our track record of how we've been operating the last 10 months, that the safety of your swimmers is paramount, right? Most important thing we could possibly have. I think we can feel pretty good about how we've been running practice with regards to that. That being said, there is a growing, I don't want to say evidence, because that implies like proof, and there's no hard studies because it's a hard thing to formally study, but there's a lot of information out there to suggest that being as restrictive as Dane County is forcing us to be right now isn't strictly necessary, right? Most of the entire rest of the state and large areas of the rest of the country and even the rest of the world are operating in normal lanes. What they're doing in those places are typically being distanced between swims, being distanced between rests, between distances, but in a normal lane, say 3 or 4 swimmers to a normal lane, and swimming by each other, sort of that ship's passing in the night, obviously breaking that Dane County 6-foot bubble, but that fleeting, no air exchange necessarily interaction is there. There hasn't been a lot of instances of that being problematic, right? Places have been, some places have been shut down, opening back up, but there are places they've been training pretty regularly and pretty hard for 5-6 months now. And if there was a story of, Anytown USA swim team is the source of some huge COVID outbreak, we all would have heard about it. And it just hasn't been the case. So the more information we get about where other places are operating, there's a study out of Canada that their swim federation put out. There was a study out of New Jersey. The more information we're getting, the more comfortable we feel practicing with the idea of practicing in that manner. It's something we're going to look at and talk about, and maybe we're going to, do our practices up in Sauk in a different format going forward. That's something that, maybe we can certainly talk about in the Q&A now, or that's something if you have an opinion on one way or the other, you could certainly email Drew, I, or the board. Our spring and summer sessions, again, that just like meets, it's too far out to say anything for sure. When you're talking about optimism, I'm most optimistic about what this spring, and especially once we get outside, late spring, early summer is going to look like. I think we're all seeing, obviously with the vaccine, we know that outdoor activities are so much safer than indoor activities. We explored a lot of new pool options last year that we may have to hold on to if we're doing, somewhat smaller groups. But I would anticipate that, swimmers in this group, our high school age swimmers, everybody really is going to have a pretty decent amount of training time this summer. And that's why we're talking about, scheduling a short course meet, what the long course season is going to look like, stuff like that. So it's going to be a little bit of, tightness here for this session and probably for the next one as well. But once we get past, late March, I'm really optimistic with what we'll be looking at in Halloween training. Next slide. So we need from you guys, the Sign Up Genius versus the pods. And again, I'm going to take this off here. Sign Up Genius versus the pods. So the line I used this last fall was, there's a quote about democracy that says it's the worst form of government there is, except for all the other ones. And that's a little bit how I feel about Sign Up Genius, right? I understand the frustrations. I understand the stress. I understand the annoyances, the limitations, every complaint anyone has about it, I totally get. However, I don't know that there's a better option, specifically when thinking about usage of the pool, right? Sign Up Genius is, in my opinion, the system that gets us the most efficient use of our pool time, right? If we're allowed to have 12 swimmers, or if our baseline is 12 swimmers in the pool in Edgewood, if we have 9 show up because of the inefficiency of our system on a regular basis, then we're just wasting the very precious pool time that we have. That being said, it may be at the tipping point where some of the stress and frustration about it isn't worth the efficiency. We might do something different, even if we know it might be a little more efficient and waste pool time a little bit more, because a lot of parents are just fed up with Sign Up Genius and some of the things we've tried to impose. People have, maybe jumped deadlines and stuff like that. So it's been a little bit contentious. So if you have any suggestions on that going forward, and you haven't already voiced your opinion like so many of you have, feel free to shoot me an email. The other thing on there was the other pools we're working at. We've heard a lot from a lot of you. Hey, we're in the Middleton district, we're in the Verona district, we're in the Monona Grove district. How come BAC can't get time at these pools? How come these pools aren't open for the public yet? Who do I need to talk to? Who do you want me to talk to? I'm angry. I want to send an email. And we've told you, relax. We're working with these people, and we've had some good conversations. But we're getting to the point where our frustration is matching yours, right? To be totally frank, like, we feel we've been, like a gold star, good guy organization when it comes to following these COVID rules and, operating safely and crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. We know that other organizations haven't. And it's not even necessarily other swim teams. I got an email the other day from a younger swimmer whose the younger sibling is in swim lessons in Dane County, and saying, hey, they're running these higher level swim lessons with 4 kids in a normal lane. How come we can't do that and they can? The answer was, I don't think they can. I think they just are. And we know certainly from hearing from you guys, from seeing it in person, coaches that have kids and other activities, some of the way that other youth sports programs are being run in Dane County right now are just blatantly violating, public health orders. We're not going to do that. But we are frustrated with sort of some of the lack of progress in these areas and some of these facilities opening up for us. So we're going to, consider pursuing some different ways to put some pressure on some of these facilities, and we might need your help with that. So nothing at the moment, but just sort of a heads up, as long as we're all talking right now, that, we might want that squeaky wheel to start asking for some grease here if we don't get some assurances that things are going to open up a little bit more. So I'll go back to the PowerPoint, but I'm pretty sure that's pretty much all there was. And we'll thank you, the sponsors. Obviously, we usually give them a shout out at meets. No meets, we don't have a way to shout them out. So they're all still listed on our website here, a few of the main ones here. Thank you guys again for all the support. Thanks to the kids. Drew, you didn't mention, you were being effusive with your praise of how well the kids have been practicing. So you want to close with that before any Q&A?
Yeah, one of the things that I brought up is, this statement wasn't by me, that was from a different coach when they had some swimmers ask, are we falling behind? And the coach's answer is, no, you're surviving a global pandemic. And it's just a different world. And I know that if COVID hasn't impacted you or your family, it's hard to get your head around the concept. But one of the things that's been kind of helpful for us is our board, is that, we have 2 medical professionals on our board that gives us kind of up-to-date information. We have other board members that are part of, medicine, health,
Parks and Rec and school systems. And
so they're able to give us kind of the guidelines on what we're trying to do. And like Jake was saying, is our number one priority is the health and safety of our kids and our coaches. And if we're not able to swim really fast in February, as long as our kids are healthy, we will swim fast later. And I totally believe that. I was telling some of the kids the other day that I was getting emails from the aquatics director at Coronado, where we've done our training trips, because one of their coaches' name is Drew. And so she was just clicking on my name instead of his to send out information. And they had to close down. They're an outdoor pool, and they had to close down because California is really, really struggling with COVID. And but she apologized to me, and I said, yeah, but it reminds me of a warmer, better time, and we would certainly like to come back soon. And the kids I was telling you about said, yeah, we get on a plane right now. And I'm like, maybe not getting on a plane right now, but it's going to seem disappointing for you for a little bit, but I totally feel I've been so impressed with the dedication and motivation of the kids showing up for practices. Like, I have a practice tonight, 8:30 to 9:30. It's like, that's really late. Kids are showing up, doing what they can, wanting to do more. And I feel really good about the team. I feel really good about the kids. I feel really bad that I'm not spending a lot of time with, different groups. But I definitely want to give a shout out to Jake. He's done an incredible job in making sure all this stuff works. I remember about a few years ago, I took Jake to a junior national meet, and he was sitting on the plane doing Sudoku. And I'm like, oh, how can you do that? Well, luckily he does do that, because our sign-up genius kind of is Sudoku. And I would definitely have a hard time doing that. So I'm impressed with the kids. I'm impressed with our coaching staff. I'm so pleased for everybody's, hanging in there and doing the best they can. So thank you for all that. And like Jake said, if you got any questions, you can email us or.
Yeah, well, we got 1 or 2 in there.
Okay,
So I'll address the ones that I saw. But again, like, perspective, right? Like, we like sort of riffing off what Drew said about California being shut down. Like, it's hard not to look, more at sort of the Milwaukee teams that are sort of our main competitors and be frustrated that they're able to do so much more than us. But like, England is shut down for 6 weeks. Like, every swim team in the country of England is shut down for 6 weeks, right? So it could be a lot worse. One of the questions was about if there is a high school girls season, what about competing for back during that time? I can't imagine this season will work any different, but there's no USA rules about it whatsoever. So it's just all high school stuff, right? And so basically it's if your swimmer gets the permission of what the coach and the athletic director, they can do up to 2 meets during a high school. Now that's the rule for a normal season. I don't know if anything's gonna be different for this season, but it's fine with us, and it's legally fine from USA Swimming's perspective. You just have to check with WIA and with your coach in particular. Right, Drew?
Yeah, and there's no rules. There's no WI rules about training off-site with a club team during your high school team. They've only had rules for years about no competition. Many years ago, they had a couple of kids that they made ineligible because they were in a triathlon, and because it had swimming, they were busted. But luckily, and I think actually Eric Knight was kind of involved in this. They got those rules to loosen up that kids can compete in 2 different meets during their high school season, as long as they get the okay from their athletic director and coach.
Yep. So should be fine on our end. Should be fine on their end too, but you got to check. We'll go to the short course meet in March. If not, could someone catch? There isn't anything planned right now, but whatever is planned, we will likely go to. Yes. Like we're going to the Waukesha meet next weekend, just like we're planning on going to A+ in early February. If there is some version of a short course yard state meet, I would anticipate that we're going. Yes.
And like Jake said, we're not going to be able to give you that information for at least a couple of weeks, because the LSC will make a decision on almost 3 weeks, which, but we will know more at that time.
Yep, the deadline for them to decide is the 26th. I think we'll have a pretty good idea by the 19th. That's when one of the coach meeting that doesn't officially decide, but that's when we come up with kind of the recommendations from the coaches. So we should know more then. All right, great. Like we said, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to email or talk to us or whatever. So thank you guys very much. Big kids, I'm sorry that, this is the population that this sucks the most for, right? I'm sorry that you guys, juniors and seniors, this is happening so late in your, at least this phase of your swim career, this time with back, or maybe you're, being affected your last or second to last high school season. It sucks. I'm really sorry. Drew's really sorry. It sucks. I'm sorry, but we're going to get you through it, and we're going to have a great summer. And so many of you are already decided on to college, and congratulations on that for those of you that are swimming next year. Juniors, start figuring it out. Ask Drew if you need any help. So, all right, that's all we had. Anything else? Adios. Bye, everybody.